Welcome everybody to our first episode of Two Old Guys
and their records.
And as we said, being the first episode, we'd like to concentrate on debut albums. Those debut albums that left enormous impressions on us, that made us buy all those other forthcoming albums afterwards. What have we chosen to look at? Mike, you can do the honours.
In terms of debut albums?
Your favourite debut album?
My favourite debut album. I've got a couple, I couldn't find them all, but I'm going to go with The Velvet Underground and Nico. Now, interesting thing about this album, when it was first released, it was a flop. Brian Eno was quoted as saying it only sold 30,000 copies, but 30,000 bands started as a result, quote unquote. So it's quite an influential album. While it wasn't successful back in the day, in the year of release, which I think was about 1967, 1968, it became a cult classic. And today it's always in the top 100 albums that anybody compiles. So there you go. I was a late bloomer when it comes to this record. I liked it so much that I licensed it and released it on my own label.
No way!
As a limited edition. So the record was like the album cover. The record was on white vinyl with a white label that had a yellow banana on it. And the label on the other side had all the song information. Then we also did a picture disc. Picture discs hadn't been done in Australia for many, many years. And as soon as we started making picture discs, everybody else started making them. So wow. There you go.
So when did you release that?
1990, I think.
Wow.
1990, and it did very well, I must say. And the idea was to make it a collector's edition, hence the white vinyl and the picture disc. But then there was a demand for black vinyl, believe it or not, so we had to repress it again in black. Okay. To make up for those guys. The interesting thing about this album, something I didn't like, firstly it grows on you. Okay, it's not something that you'll immediately take to. With songs like Venus in Furs, based on the novel from the late 1800s. But if you're familiar with the novel and you listen to the song, it's like you're actually there. So in a 3.5 minute song, they condense the whole novel, everything is right there. The whole thing is really hard to listen to initially. But as I say, it does grow on you. And as I say, I liked it so much, I had to release it. The other songs here, one that I don't particularly like is Heroin. Now, you need to look at it. Is he talking about what he's observed, or is he talking about actually having used it? Given the history of the band, well, you know, maybe it's a bit of both. We don't know. But what lets this album down? I think it was recorded in 1967. A tin can recording, if you like. So not very dynamic, but you know, the songs are there, and more importantly, it conveys a mood. And you can take a mood from each and every song, and that's what makes it attractive to the listener. My favourite song on the album is All Tomorrow's Parties. Nico was a German model, the late Nico, had a very stern German male-sounding voice. So in that particular song, she really comes across as very stern and very serious. So it just conveys a nice mood. What have you got for us?
Okay, so for me, look, I had, you know, going through all my debut albums, it was very, very hard, you know, like, do you go Led Zeppelin, do you go Black Sabbath, do you go, where do you go? But lately, guys, I have been quite sentimental with the recent passing of Eddie Van Halen. So I chose Van Halen 1, right? And you know, I simply love this album. Okay, let's put a bit of context for it. Why was it important? At the time, rock music was going through a very lull period. We're looking at 1977, 1978. So what was the hard rock bands doing at the time? What was Black Sabbath doing at the time? They certainly weren't Paranoid, you know, or War Pigs. They were sort of moving on the way out. Deep Purple didn't exist by that point. Okay, Led Zeppelin was probably doing their, you know, their worst album Out Through the Door.
And through the outdoor, yeah.
Okay, so yes, so rock music I think needed something, and this came out. And I understand, you know, the legend of, you know, the Starwood Club where Templeton, you know, the producer sees them and then signs them up, and he reproduces probably their live sound on this album. So I think sonically, it sounds like a great album. Now, there's a lot of great tracks on this. You know, for me, it epitomizes sex, ain't talking about love, drugs, the Ice Cream Man, and lots of rock and roll, right? So, great cover version of You Really Got Me Now.
Excellent.
Top version of that, you know. And a lot of people, you know, epitomise this album for one song that only goes, it's an instrumental and it only goes for a couple of minutes. But it transforms rock music forever, and that is Eruption with Van Halen. How many kids, after listening to that, grabbed the guitar, went and bought a guitar? So, and the thing is, everyone talks about, you know, those early live shows where he turned his back to the audience so they wouldn't see him playing what he was playing, right? You know, and all of that. But he was a pioneer in guitar playing, where he was finger tapping across the neck, up and down the neck, whatever he was doing, okay? Amazing. And for me, it's not just about Eddie Van Halen. You've got an incredible showman as a singer, David Lee Roth. So you've got this chemistry between the two, which is simply amazing. And what comes after this, think about it. You know, you've got that LA sound coming through, you know, the glam metal in the 80s. These guys were the ones that pushed forth, I think. So they've got an enormous legacy, you know, because all those bands like, you know, Rat and Motley Crue and all that, they come after this. And what I love about the sound is you haven't got this distortion as a lead solo. You know, it's crisp, it's light, there's hardly any. It's Eddie Van Halen's amazing guitar playing. So I just found this as a favourite, not probably my best debut album, but my favourite. At the moment, I'm listening to it tirelessly because of Eddie's passing, and we miss Eddie very, very much. I miss him terribly, right? And it's great, and I love the cover. I love the cover with all four members. You know, we talk about, you know, Eruption and Eddie Van Halen being, you know, transforming guitar playing, but it's all four members on there, and I thought that. And you know, us as heavy metal kids growing up in the 80s, how many of us used to draw that logo on our folders or in our maths, you know, during a boring maths lesson, we were drawing that, you know, we were reproducing that, and that was amazing, right? It all stopped once Sammy Hagar joined in, and we couldn't do it after that, right? But yeah, we used to fantasize over Van Halen, so that's my favourite debut album. Alright, so they're our favourite debut albums, our favourites. Okay, we would like to thank everybody who sent in their favourite albums. We had one fellow, Arthur from Kingsgrove. Now, Arthur was quite funny because he sent a huge list.
Yes, a huge list.
A huge list of debut albums that he'd like debut. And I said to him, look, come on, Arthur, can you choose one? And he did choose one, and his one was Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix. Now, hey, we go from Eddie Van Halen, and we've moved now back 10 years, well, 10 and a bit years, right? And we go to another guitarist who transforms rock music.
Correct.
And Jimi Hendrix, you know, Jimi Hendrix was playing guitar for everyone, from Little Richard to whatever. He was there playing guitar as a backing guitarist for all these famous singers, you know, African American singers. And, you know, it's the Animals bass player who's the manager, and he sort of convinced him to come to England.
Correct. Right?
He's the one that sort of transferred, you know, let's have a try in Britain, in London, and this is where he hits it. What I love about Jimi Hendrix is he nails every genre. He fuses psychedelia, rock, blues, you know, he takes the song Are You Experienced, that's slow, it's sort of flowery, but it's still rock. You know, he's got Foxy Lady, he's got Manic Depression, he's got Love and Confusion. There's, you know what I love about it is, you know, yes, he had this studio time, he had limited funds, and every song is a great song. It's all killer, no filler.
We had another one from George, and George is probably the #1 Tom Petty fan in the world. To an extent, I have to agree with him. Tom Petty was a class act. His first album spawned a couple of hit singles. It really put him on the world map. But the interesting thing about Tom Petty, had you seen him in concert? It was pure rock and roll. No moving lights, no this, no that. Admittedly, I saw him in 1980. Moving lights and all this fancy stuff was just coming in. However, he had a traditional lighting setup. It was not about the lights. It was not about, look how good our light show is. It was about, listen to the music. And I have to say that was the best rock and roll show that I've ever seen.
Really?
Yes, because it was about pure rock and roll. Now, if you want entertainment in a live show, I saw the Clash at the same time, the Motels, the B-52s, all within a period of a month or two, a couple of months. For some reason in 1980, the Capitol Theatre was just pumping out concerts. And we were at every single concert there. But even Gary Newman. Now, Gary Newman had an elaborate stage set with computerized lighting, which was advanced in those days, but nothing today. So when you compare Tom Petty to all of those other acts, his show was about pure rock and roll. So we did promise to tell you whether these albums that you nominate are good or not. Have you entered all the data?
Now, we entered all the data. We looked at composition of the album, song quality. We looked at
Cool factor.
We looked at
Record sales.
We looked at the legacy. We looked at all of that, right?
So all the data is in?
All the data is in.
Let's see if that first nominated album, Jimi Hendrix.
Are you experienced?
Let's see if it's good or not. Tell me when.
When?
Yes, it's good.
It's good.
Fantastic.
Okay, fantastic album. Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced is a good album.
Very good. We also promised to tell you if the next album is good or not.
Tom Petty.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Tell me when.
Nico.
When?
Yes.
Hey,
It's a good
good
album.
album, right?
Good choice, guys.
So, Arthur from Kings Grove, good
And George
choice.
from Bright-on-the-Sands.
Good choices.
Well done.
And that's the end of our first segment. We'd like to finish off the episode with something a little bit more serious, a serious message, and that is that to keep the record industry, the current record industry alive, we need to buy new albums. Okay, so support the industry, support the bands. You know, we've had a real horrible year this year. Mm-hmm. Okay, a lot of these bands aren't touring. Buy their merchandise. They're releasing a lot of the stream concerts they did on vinyl and whatever. Buy that stuff. Help the bands. Help the industry. And I must say that I did receive my new Soulstophia album, which is the endless twilight of codependent love. Yes, from the land of the northern skies and the Viking clap. Now, I'm not asking you guys to buy the deluxe version of an album that costs you hundreds of dollars
With a velvet cover.
with a velvet cover, but just go out there and buy the normal records out there that are available. That'll help the bands. I love Soulstophia. This is about their 10th album at the moment. Okay, I love this album. Which other band starts off their album with the ambitious 10 minutes and plus Akiri? Okay, beautiful. It shifts about 4 or 5 times. It keeps the audience's attention. The band goes from everything from a very, very tender Till Mulder, very tender piece, and they rock out with something like Ulford. But I think, guys, what epitomizes Soulstophia is a song called Or. Okay, it's song 8, and you know they start off with this groovy blues beat, and the great thing about Soulstophia is you have no idea where the song will end up. So it starts off with this groove, the piano, the guitar. It's a very casual vocal, and about the 2-minute mark, this great lead solo starts. You know, at 4 minutes, there's a bit of a break, a bit of fuzz, and then the band comes after you. Tryggvason's vocals are amazing, very, very passionate, from the casualness to this passionate voice. You've got guitars, you've got this atmospheric synthesizer. The band really comes together, and by the end of it, it's just this massive climax that you want to go on and on and on. and they are an amazing band. Again, from Iceland, post-metal, because they started off as a black metal band. In the second album, they went post-metal. Sol Sophia, great album. Thank you, boys.
So if you have anything you'd like us to discuss, to review, to look into, drop a line in the comments and we will look into it, and of course we'll tell you if it's good or not.
It's Vass.
Mike.
Two old guys.
And their records.
Thank you very much.